You mentioned anti-Semitism, and there has been protests around the world and here in the country supporting Palestinians. We've been seeing anti-Semitism from college campuses and elsewhere, and in fact, some threats to Jewish people. You introduced a bill to suspend terrorist activity on college campuses. Can you expand on that?
Well, I think what's really bothered a lot of people is to see that our universities, who we spend billions of dollars in, the pride and joy, we encourage all our kids to go to colleges, we would love for them to go to these elite schools, have become nests of anti-Semitism. When someone is out there chanting really about from the river to the sea, okay, they don't even know what that means. What that basically means, what that slogan means, whether these idiots who are saying it realize it or not, is every Jew gets kicked out of that area. And their Palestinians dominate from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, the entirety of what we know as Israel, the nation of Israel. Okay, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about either genocide or force driving people out of a place in the world. Well, there's been a continuous Jewish presence for thousands of years, by the way. So it bothers me to see that that's happening on our campuses. It outrages me that we've paid for it. Billions of dollars a year go into these universities, and my bill says no federal dollars can be used to put on events or to sponsor activities that support or encourage others to support designated foreign terrorist organizations, meaning organizations that are designated by the State Department. And any student who either supports these organizations or encourages others to support the goals and aims of these organizations, it's an automatic disqualifier for financial aid. I don't think, people can argue you have a First Amendment right to say these things. What they cannot argue is that you have any right to receive federal financial aid if you are out there using that to then go to school and harass Jewish students and support foreign terrorist organizations that have been designated as such by our State Department.
I want to move quickly to Ukraine and Russia, another complex situation, and the aid package. There are differences of opinions about the aid package that has included Ukraine, along with the aid for Israel. You believe it should be separate?
Well, I believe it should be separate because it'll be easier to pass that way. Look, common sense tells me this. There is almost unanimous support, overwhelming support for helping Israel, both in the House and Senate. We could pass an Israel aid package in 30 seconds if we wanted to, in the Senate, and another 30 seconds in the House. That's how quickly it can happen. That is not true with Ukraine. I have supported Ukraine. I have supported funding for Ukraine. I believe the fastest way to end the war in Ukraine is to convince Vladimir Putin that we're not going to abandon Ukraine. But I recognize that there are colleagues of mine, maybe even a majority of Republicans or a substantial number of Republicans in the House, and a growing number in the Senate that are more skeptical about aid to Ukraine or want to learn more about it or want to see more constraints. Maybe they're for the military aid, but they don't want us funding the Ukrainian government, pensions in that country and the like. And so I don't want to slow down Israel aid by linking it to something that I think we should do, but has more resistance to it. So I think common sense tells you if this is there, let's do the Israel aid. And then let's deal with the Ukraine aid separately. I think what's happening here is that the White House is saying, well, we know we can't pass Ukraine aid or it's going to take too long. The only way we can guarantee Ukraine aid is to tie it to something that everybody else wants. In essence, what they want to be able to say is if you don't vote for Ukraine, you're against Israel. And that's why I think they should be separated. I'm fine if we pass a bill that has them both, as long as the Ukraine aid looks right. But I think it should be separated because it'll be faster and easier to do. And Israel really needs it immediately.
And finally, on to Venezuela, because not many people are talking about that right now with what's going on globally. But a deal was made between the Biden administration and the Maduro regime, lifting sanctions for free and fair elections. You asked Secretary Blinken about that. What was his response?
Well, he wasn't aware, apparently, for what it seemed to me. And I want to be fair to the guy, okay? He's Secretary of State, but he's dealing with all the stuff in the Middle East, and it just happened the night before. But apparently he was not aware of the following, okay? The Biden administration did a deal which I think was a stupid deal from the beginning because Maduro was never going to live up to it. And it said, if you promise to do free and fair elections, we'll actually lift some sanctions now, okay? What did Maduro do less than 2 weeks later? They literally canceled, they voided, they wiped out the primary elections of the opposition. There is a candidate, Maria Corina Machado, who's running for president, who in a lot of reliable public polling, to the extent there can be, is overwhelmingly beating him, and he knows it. They've disqualified her from the ballot. She wins the primary. They wipe out the primary. That is the definition of an unfair election when you say, well, we're going to have an election, but the opposition can't pick their candidate and they can't have a primary election. They just did that. That is a blatant violation of the deal. So I don't understand at this point why we didn't immediately snap back to sanctions. And I suspect that there'll be resistance in the State Department to doing so because it is filled with people that sympathize with Maduro and that want to help Maduro and want to help that regime and never were in favor of sanctions to begin with. And so, I think part of this is they reached this deportation agreement where they're going to deport Venezuelans. And I think that's the real deal that happened here. And in exchange for that, they lifted these sanctions. And I think one of the reasons why Biden is going to be resistant to reimposing sanctions is he's afraid that Maduro will say, well, then I will no longer accept the repatriation flights and the deportation flights of Venezuelans. I think that's what he's afraid of.
Senator Rubio, we always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.